And we're back. You're listening to the Talking Boxing with Billy C show. Glad you could join us. We'll give a shout out to all of our ESPN radio listeners and our Fox Sports radio listeners. Glad you guys could join us. And don't forget about the website, www.raindaily.com. What is it? Check it out and you'll find out. www.raindaily.com. And if you're in Western New York, don't forget about February 27th, Saturday, another big show from JKJ Boxing Promotions, up-and-coming fighters. You can see them as they rise to the top. Visit www.jkjboxing.com or click the fight poster that's up on BillyCBoxing.com for information. Make sure you tell them Billy C sent you, and don't miss that card. It's a good one. And speaking of good one, how about this book, my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet. It's available right now. I'm talking right now. You can get a copy of it on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Kindle, Nook, whatever. Just get yourself a copy. It's a great read. And, hey, it's a good one for this month, Black History Month, February. Tom Molyneux is a piece of history that people should be reminded of and learn about if you don't know about it. That's the problem. That's why I wrote this book. You know, he's a forgotten guy. He was the most popular man on the planet in 1810. I know it was a few years ago. And no, I wasn't born that year. But anyway, joining us right now is a special guest. And Haley Zale is going to give us an update on what's going on with Tony Zale's belts. Haley, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Billy C. Thank you for having me.
I tell you, first of all, I read the book that your dad wrote with Clay Moyle, The Man of Steel, on Tony Zale. It was a great read. Some great stuff that was brought to light that no one really knew about Tony Zale. And it was great that they finally put the book out. But following that success of the book and the promotion of the book, the weird thing happened about the belts. Tell us the whole story. Remind us of what took place up at the Hall of Fame.
Sure. Well, on November 5th, 2015, exactly 3 months ago today, we received a phone call from Ed Brophy that there had been a break-in that morning at 3 o'clock in the morning. And all 6 of the belts that were on display right there at the entrance were missing and are still missing. They vanished. And within a few minutes, the cops arrived and have started their investigation, and it's still ongoing.
Now, was it just those 6 belts from the entranceway, and were they all? I know Tony Zale's belt, Carmen Basilio. Were there any other ones that were involved, and did they have any kind of a motive for it?
No, it was just those 6. And even something that's interesting is that there was a Hall of Fame replica ring in with Uncle Tony's belts, and that was left behind. So it was very clear that whoever did this wanted exactly those 6 belts, and they took nothing else. And they even passed other important and impressive items, but these are the ones that were missing. And as far as a motive, the only thing that we can think of is money, or I don't know. Just the fact that they have them on their wall if they're a huge Tony Zale or Basilio fan. But I think it comes down to money, I think.
Yeah, but what could you do? I mean, let's be real. It's publicized that they were stolen. They were the originals, right?
They were.
Yeah.
The originals.
So now if you go to try to sell them someplace, that they're stolen. I mean, how could there be a value? I don't understand that unless there's a black market for it and somebody buys it and doesn't tell anybody and keeps it in their drawer. I don't know. It makes no sense. It seems ridiculous to me.
Yeah. It is ridiculous because these are such personal achievements. These were earned from hours years of taking punches, receiving, giving them. I mean, it's just so specifically theirs. Carmen Basilio's, an onion farmer from upstate New York, and Tony Zale's, a steelworker from Gary, Indiana. I mean, there must be an underground market. I know that other, sports memorabilia is actually a game. There's Heisman trophies that have been stolen, Yogi Berra's, baseball bat has been stolen, rings have been stolen, and these belts in particular, they are worth $100,000 each at a legitimate auction. I mean, that's what Sotheby's has told us, that even within a collection, their value goes up. But again, that's at a legitimate auction. So with an underground market, I mean, the crime syndicate, it's just a mystery. And how do you know how to buy those things? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I could have my own assumptions of how things happen. I mean, and they didn't have any kind of alarm system or anything like that. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, listen, I know that you're trying to get to the bottom of it, but it just seems so bizarre to me, Haley.
Yeah, there was a security system that they had, an alarm system. There were no cameras, but an alarm did go off, which notified the security company, who notified the police, and within 4.5 minutes, the cops showed up, but it was too late. So we actually withdrew the Presidential Citizens Medal that Uncle Tony won, or was awarded from President Bush Sr. in 1989. We removed that because we were scared. I mean, places get hit twice, and to not have security in the form of cameras and an image, that it's just lacking information. And one of the things that's so heartbreaking is we trusted that they were there, and they've been there for 17 years. And it's a place that I frequented. I live in New York City, so I rarely get to Portage, Indiana, where Uncle Tony was buried. So going to the Hall of Fame upstate, it was like visiting his grave. And to me, I would say, "Hey, Uncle Tony," in my mind, and say a little prayer to him every time I saw those belts. So it's just pretty heartbreaking.
Yeah, it definitely is, and I know it's a big burden to your family, and you guys have kind of spearheaded the at least to try to recover these, and you've done some things on your own as a family to try and get these belts back. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, for the past 3 months, 92 days to be exact. Well, actually, within the first 48 hours, we were told not to publicize this, not to keep it quiet, not to post anything on social media. And so we obeyed, even though I desperately wanted to put it out there right away. We obeyed, and then it ended up taking an additional 2.5 days beyond 48 hours. So it was 108 hours until anything was put out into the press. And since then, it's been nonstop. Every day, I've been manning Uncle Tony's Facebook page, Tony Zale, World Middleweight Boxing Champion. I've been manning the Twitter page, Tony Zale at Boxer Zale, and I created an Instagram, Tony Zale, the Man of Steel Instagram, and it's been really educating and as well as exciting to look back at these photos and to delve even more into Uncle Tony's story and even learning more about Carmen Basilio. Rosie Perez started a hashtag for us, Bring Back the Belts. So since then, that's been my goal, is just to get the word out there, because what do we do now? Now, how do we get these back now that it's been 3 months? What is the one thing that I can do? And that's just to use my voice on social media and to reach out to friends and ask them to please share. And that's how things, that's how news gets spread now. That's how things get out there, and people are more aware that this has happened. I still have people every day who are like, "Oh, I didn't know this happened." I mean, actual boxing people. I've got now a connection with people in Thailand, in Australia, in New Zealand, and Ukraine. It's amazing that the world is connected on the internet, and at this point, it's just trying to get it out there. And speaking to you, I'm so grateful to be able to tell even more listeners and more boxing fans that this has happened. It's been a bruise on the boxing history.
We got a lot. We're right now. We got a lot of different things going on with this show, where we're broadcasting live, and obviously it'll be up on replay. But we do have a chat room right now, and I'm getting some questions in the chat room that some of the people wanted me to ask you. One of the questions is, were the belts insured? And I could almost assume not, because if they were, it wouldn't be as well. I guess it's not a money issue, is it?
Well, who knows? We did not personally have them insured. I have been told the Hall of Fame did, but we don't know for how much. We've spoken with their insurance person, and we really are kind of at a standstill. We don't have a lot of information. At this point, it's just very frustrating.
Listen, I don't mean to interrupt you, but if Ed Brophy and the International Boxing Hall of Fame had those belts insured, I hate to sound pessimistic, but I'd be looking at those guys. I mean, I can't. I'm just calling a spade. I'd be like, hey, Ed, you had him insured. Are you collecting on this? Why, your family, I'm talking about the Zale family personally, is suffering from, without a monetary loss. We're not even talking about the monetary loss. We're talking about a family heirloom, and I'd be pissed, and the other thing is, he says, the cops were there quickly. You have a security system without cameras. I mean, who does that now in the year 2016? It's almost like the Barney Fife Police Department that they have in Canastota. I mean, come on. I mean, I don't mean to be as blunt as I am, but to me, the more I'm hearing of it, directly from you, the more ridiculous it sounds to me. I'd be more than upset. I'd be pissed off right now. I'm getting pissed off just listening to the story, to be honest with you. I read and passed along the press releases that your dad sent out, and we posted them on our websites, and we talked about it when it first happened. But I had no idea of really the whole picture until you're kind of painting it for me now, and it seems pretty fishy to me, Haley.
Yeah, you're actually saying a lot of things that many, many people have said to us as well as a reaction. One, it sounds like an inside job, and two, why? Who's to blame, and how, and why, and all the above. I think I've spoken with Ed just this week, and we've always had a great relationship with Ed Brophy the past 17 years. I do like Ed very much. I've asked him about the insurance and haven't had a direct answer. I've asked him about contributing to the reward, and he's undecided. And, it's a situation that he never expected to happen, and I know he feels terrible about this. But at this point, everyone is in over their head. We're talking about almost $1 million boxing belt heist, and it's just bigger than the village of Canastota can handle. The FBI is involved. I know that they brought in their Antiquities Bureau, and they're waiting on some crucial evidence to be returned. And they're trying to investigate the village of Canastota has assigned Police Chief James Brophy, who is, he says he's working on this investigation, but we are not being kept in the loop. Even though he told me on November 24th when I met him for the first time, he said, you're entitled to information because you're one of the victims. He said, I have no plans on not sharing anything with you on what we're doing or how we're doing it. And if you feel like you haven't heard anything, then give me a call. So that's what I did. I hadn't heard from him since before Thanksgiving. I called him a couple days ago, and he finally called me back yesterday. And we had a disturbing conversation. And at this point, he wouldn't answer my questions about the investigation. I asked if volunteers of the Hall of Fame have been interviewed, because a lot of those people that I've been told are required community service people. And he responded to me that he needed reason to question them. And I said, well, isn't the belt missing enough of a reason? And he was pretty insulting and condescending and disrespectful, and said, I've been doing this for 24 years. Don't tell me how to run my investigation. I'm leading this. I'm the professional. What do you know? Or what do you do? And he was just, he had, 2.5 months ago, he had been on our side and said, you're going to be my new best friend. We're going to be talking all the time and keeping you in the loop. But none of those promises have been kept. And the trust is being broken. And I am also smelling a fish, and I don't like that.
No, and listen. Let me ask you one other question. I feel like I have an attorney hat on. But let me ask you a question. Was there any kind of an agreement? Was there any kind of promises that were made in writing from the International Boxing Hall of Fame to the Zale family in order to put those belts on display? I mean, forget about the Basilio family because I'm talking to you. You're representing the Zale family, so I nobody can answer that, but you could answer the question that I just posed. I mean, do they make any kind of a guarantee? I mean, is that something that, out of the goodness of the heart, your family decides to put on display so the boxing community can see it, and then you roll the dice, and you got to deal with possible situations like this? I mean, what was involved with that?
There is a written loan agreement. Unfortunately, it's a little bit weak and broad, and it was signed back in 1998 with the mission to renew every year. And it's just, there's nothing in there about them being insured. I mean, I'm really quite upset that at this point the International Boxing Hall of Fame is responsible. But
it's still your property, right?
It is.
Okay,
it is, yeah.
and it has to be worded that not only is it your property, but it's on loan from your family, to the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Is there verbiage like that somewhere along there?
That's pretty much the exact verbiage.
Okay.
It's that, and then a list of the items.
Okay. Now, with that contract alone, all right, and again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on TV or the radio, but I'm very familiar with the law. And here's the thing I would ask. You have every right to know if there was an insurance policy on those and who the beneficiary was. You have every right. It's your property.
Thank you.
And not only that, but it's not out of the ordinary for, and I don't mean to point any fingers at anyone specific, but so I'm just going to blanket it. It's not out of the ordinary for the International Boxing Hall of Fame to take insurance policies out on the items that are in their museum. And the reason they would do it is not for personal gain and hope. When I promote shows and we take out rain insurance, we're doing rain dances. We're hoping it rains so we can collect on the insurance and still have the show. That's a different story. If you're taking out insurance policies on private merchandise that's owned outside of the Hall of Fame, well, then my thought is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the insurance would be to compensate the loss of the family in a case like this, not their own personal gain. If they have insurance on this and they've collected it, that's not only fishy. That's a really good case. And again, I'm not suggesting that they did this, and I'm not pointing any fingers because I support the Hall of Fame. But that would be some questions I would clearly be asking, and you already probably did, right?
Right. Well, another thing that I asked them is if they have a sprinkler system set up in either one of their buildings, in the pavilion or the museum. And I couldn't believe it. They don't. They do not have a sprinkler system, and they have priceless items in there. And I pleaded them to consider that, just like I pleaded with them to upgrade their security. And I know that they are just as heartbroken as we are. But somebody is responsible for this, and we put them there in good faith, trusting that they were safe. And quite honestly, I had no idea there was no security cameras in there. I just assumed that there were, because that would be the smart thing to do. So it's been a wake-up call for them, and I know that they are going about things now with a different perspective.
Well, listen, not to beat a dead horse, but a lot of people have the misconception that hall, and this is what I'm about to say is fact. Okay, a lot of people have the misconception that Hall of Fame is in place for the good of the sport of boxing, and
right.
That the powers that be, let's stop mentioning names, but the powers that be in the International Boxing Hall of Fame are doing this out of the goodness of the heart. The reality of that is so far from that. The truth of the matter is, it's a family business. That's how they make their living, okay? And I would be as equally as upset as you clearly are and the rest of your family. What can people do right now to help you? I know you mentioned something about a reward. You created some websites, Facebook pages, Twitter accounts, et cetera, et cetera. What can people do to help with the cause here?
Right now the reward that was started was on November 9th, the day that this information came out. Gomez and Lisa from TK99, classic rock station there in Syracuse. Instantly, their reaction was, we're throwing out a reward. So they started with $5,000 reward, to which the next day my father added $2,500. And then within a few days, the WBC saw our personal press release from Zale's Corner, and Mauricio Solomon wrote back and said, the WBC will match your $7,500. So now the reward is at $15,000. Other people, we've had many people wanting to help because the boxing community is so wonderful, and they're just as outraged as we are. And my family did start up a second reward for info leading to the arrest and conviction, and if recovered, the prosecution. And that isn't really the primary reward. We would love for it all to go into one, but then it gets sticky. It's like, well, it's coming from three sources right now. We're hoping the Hall of Fame will add to that $15,000, but at this point, I just want to ask people to share, to please just share this, anything. I mean, I'm posting things once, twice, three times a day, photos of the belts, photos of Tony with the belts, photos of Carmen. I mean, these guys were class acts, and they don't deserve this. So if people can share, and, if they have any tips, to send it into the tip line at the Canastota Police Department. Their number's 315-697-2240. And at this point, we just need help.
What's some of the social media addresses or links that you have created? Do you want to give those out?
Sure. My favorite one is Instagram, because I love pictures. So that the Instagram is Tony Zale, the Man of Steel. All one word. The Twitter is Tony Zale at Boxer Zale, and Facebook is mine, my mom's Deb Zale, or my dad's Ted Zale. Teresa Zale is the daughter of Tony, who actually, if you can believe it, she's never seen the belts. And there were actually three belts. Uncle Tony's 1940 NBA belt from Hofstak has been missing for decades. So actually all three of Uncle Tony's championship belts are gone, and they haven't been together since 1983. So anyway, then there's also the website, tonyzale.org. And the Tony Zale Facebook page is Tony Zale World Middleweight Boxing Champion.
All right, listen, before I thank you for coming on, I would give you some advice, and whether you guys are doing it or not, especially you're a New Yorker, I'm a New Yorker, here's the bottom line. I would retain a lawyer if you guys haven't already, and I would go after, if this was me and my family and stuff, I would start the process of going after not only the Canastota Police Department, but also the International Boxing Hall of Fame. There's something awfully stinky here, and not that I'm playing like Entertainment Tonight or anything like that, but it just doesn't make sense to me, especially if it was a crime that was specific. You would think, hey, nothing for nothing, but the first suspects would be you. You would be the Zale family, would be the Basilio family. I mean, that's what people would think, because if they've only targeted those things, you know what I mean? So, it seems very fishy to me, and my prayers go out to you and your family, and I really hope that all of our listeners, Haley gave you all the addresses. The big ones to remember is www.tonyzale.org, and Haley's favorite, which is the Instagram, Tony Zale, the Man of Steel. Check that out, and the the hotline for the Canastota Barney Fife Police Department, 315-697-2240. Haley, I hope everything works out. Please keep us posted, and we'd love to have you come back on and keep us up to date, especially if something comes on that, changes the story. If you hear something positive or negative or whatever, if you want to get it out, just reach out to me, and we'd love to have you come back on.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you for your support. It's very touching, and the theft itself is heartbreaking, but dealing with the aftermath is the most difficult part, and it's been really great to have your support. Thank you.
Well, listen, I appreciate hearing some of the nuts and bolts of the story, and I think that anyone, whether they're a boxing fan or not, have to feel the pain that your family is going through, and hopefully we can get these belts back. And even, I'm sure that even if whoever has them, if they anonymously returned them, that would be cool too. So whatever has to be done, please keep us posted, all right?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, have a good night.
You too. Bye.
That was Haley Zale, the niece of Tony Zale, the former world champion. And crazy stuff, man. Crazy stuff. Listen, I'm an opinionated guy. You guys know that. And I don't know. Nothing against the International Boxing Hall of Fame, but Haley said they had no sprinkler system in there. They have a so-called security system with no cameras. I mean, I know Canastota is left, in the dark a little bit with technology where it is. I mean, I live in upstate New York too, but most places I know have photo. I mean, come on. We're talking about the year 2016. We're talking about a facility. If you've never been to the Hall of Fame, it's the size of a house. As a matter of fact, my house is bigger than that place. And most people's house is bigger than the actual Hall of Fame. So, I mean, to not safeguard that with all of forget the value. I mean, Haley was kind enough to give us some dollar figures what these belts were worth. But it's worth way more than that to the families of all these former, boxing greats. It's a terrible situation. So if you have any information, again, the Canastota hotline, police hotline number, 315-697-2240. Check out Haley's Instagram address, Tony Zale, the Man of Steel, or you can check out tonyzale.org for all the other links. Hey, listen, I'm going to take a short break, and when I come back, I'm going to open up the phone lines for Fan Driven Friday. I'll be back in 2.